Welcome to Systems Engineering Leadership, EGMT 650. This is the Week 1 lecture. My name is Kevin Gazzara and I will be your lecturer for today. First, we'd like to provide an introduction to the course. We'll talk about course objectives. There are 7 of these. The first objective is providing you essential properties of what effective leadership is and the importance of this leadership into integration management. The second objective is to provide you leading leadership approaches and concepts that can be used in creating your own leadership model that will be delivered at the end of the class for the semester. The third is how do you create your personal leadership model based on the concepts that were delivered, as well as integrating your own personal experiences. The fourth one is providing personal and team motivation models and systems so that you can understand how individuals and teams are motivated. The fifth is giving you an overview of systems thinking concepts and how to apply these within the leadership model that you'll be developing. The sixth one is on a regular basis, you will be providing reflection each week on your personal experiences and relating those to the course materials. And the last one is for you to produce a book summary that will hopefully have future value for you. This week, we will be focused in these 2 areas for the first 2 objectives. In this lecture for week 1, we will be discussing 5 overall concepts. The first is to introduce you to what is known as the leadership commandments. The second is the ADAM model, which stands for Analyze, Design, Apply, and Measure. The third is the disciplines of a learning organization. The fourth is the difference between management and leadership, providing that comparison. And the fifth topic is leadership and management roles, their approaches, and an overview of the different methodologies. First, let's discuss the leadership commandments. Harvard Business Review did a special edition on leadership in the early 2000s, which I felt was exceptional and provided a very good visual as well as a simple process to be used that can be applied to your daily leadership. There were 3 commandments, and the first commandment was know thyself. So once you understand who you are, then you can apply it throughout the system. The supplemental commandments, which there are 2 of, the second commandment is understanding others. So once you've mastered the first commandment of understanding thyself or yourself, then you can apply the same knowledge using the second commandment for others. This works particularly well in teams or managing individuals. And the third commandment, which is initiate and sustain change. The key here is that you must initiate and sustain change, and this is what truly defines leadership over management. Now, putting these 3 together, the know, the understand, and initiate, by placing those sequentially, you have the ability to create a system. So once you know, then you're able to understand and then initiate the change. And as you apply each one of these, you create this system for reinforcement to take what you've initiated and then rechecking your knowledge or rechecking your understanding for others. The ADAM model was developed by myself and 2 other colleagues within my consulting firm, and it's a very simple model, easy to remember, and designed to be able to be used throughout the course. And we will use this approach as we talk about the different concepts over and over so that you can understand and be comfortable with the approach. The first approach, or the first step here, is analyze. This is where you evaluate the current environment and possibly even your return on investment. So what's the value of this to the organization? The second is with regard to design, and this is developing a strategy based on your analysis to address the analysis findings, and also to be able to eventually act or apply this in the next step. And the third step is act, where you implement proven tools to accomplish the strategic design that you had done here. In the act phase, we will be introducing multiple proven tools throughout the course, both in the book, in the reading, and the supplemental lectures, that hopefully you will apply in your daily basis to your work environment and integrate that into your final model. Once you've completed ACT, the next is to move to measure. And in the measurement stage, you're going to create a tracking system for implementing the actions for continuous improvement and reanalysis. If you have a measurement system in place, then you can improve what you're working on and also improve the overall system. And with that measurement, that gives us the ability to go back to the first step, which is reanalyze, redesign, react, and remeasure. For this week, we will begin focusing on the analysis phase. Next, I'd like to talk about the 10 steps to a learning organization. This was developed by Peter Klein and Bernard Sanders in their book, 10 Steps to a Learning Organization. And what I have found is that if you can work on all 10 of these, or even several of them, in your workplace, you can create what is known as a learning organization, which you will read about in the 5th Discipline book that is required for this course by Peter Senge. And what I have found over the past 30 years is that understanding these elements and picking a few of these to focus upon will identify you as a great manager and a great leader. So let's get started. First, you have to assess your learning culture. As we described in the ADAM model, the first portion of any system is to do a proper assessment. The second is to promote the positive. Look for how well you and your leadership promotes the positive, provides feedback, and really does not dwell on the negative. The third one is make the workplace safe for thinking. Safe for thinking means that you can take risks and you can be rewarded and recognized for those. This removes the chance for mediocrity in performance and helps sustain long-term growth for an organization. The fourth is reward risk-taking. So once you've made the workplace safe, then you want to reward the risk-taking for individuals and encourage them to do more. And I would say reward informed risk-taking by doing things that are smart. The fifth one is help people become resources for each other. The idea here is move beyond the silos and help each other be resources so that you can collectively build a great organization. The sixth is put the learning power to work. So take all of this knowledge that you're developing, that you're working with in the workplace, and put it to work so that it provides you some return on investment. Number 7 is map out the vision. make sure that you have an idea of where you're going. Even if your company or organization doesn't have a vision, you should have a vision for the department that you are working in. It gives the people an idea of where you're going, what you want to accomplish, and often the methodology to get you there. 8 is bring the vision to life. Work this into your regular meetings, in your one-on-ones with your employees, as well as making it visible. Any graphics, anything that's visible in the organization is a big help. Number 9 is connect the systems. So bring the people together, make sure the systems are working together in an efficient and effective manner. And the final step is get the show on the road. So actually do some of this, reinforce that some of this is happening, and it will create a reinforcing system very much along the lines of what you saw with the 3 steps from the Harvard model as well as the ADA model. This course is based around systems and leadership systems, and we'll continue to introduce different systems that work in the workplace. Next, we'll talk about management versus leadership. This particular chart is extracted from the book by Warren Bennis and Goldsmith called Learning to Lead. We took the basic elements that Bennis had described, and we've created an assessment here for you. The way to use this assessment is go into the course materials and you'll find this document that you can print out and answer, or you can do them electronically. It's your choice. And the process is very simple. On a regular basis, up here, just answer each one of these questions with regard to, do I do this none of the time, some of the time, half of the time, most of the time, or all of the time. And the more honest you are, the better this assessment will work for you. So let's do the first one together. So as an example, on a regular basis, do I consistently administer tasks or activities for or with my staff or coworkers? And if I say I do that maybe half of the time, that's part of my function, I would put a 3 in there. The same would apply for the second question. On a regular basis, consistently, do I investigate opportunities for my organization? This is above and beyond my job. If the answer is I do this all the time, then I would put a 5 in there. And so forth and so on. And then all we ask you to do as the first step is to complete all of the 24 questions. The more honest you are, the better. So take some time. You'll see on this slide that we'd ask you to stop the video here and answer the 24 questions before you move to the next slide. All right, now that you have completed your assessment, what we'd ask you to do is take the numbers, and you'll see in the second column we ask you to put an M, and the third column we ask you to write an L. Those are blank areas. Now what you want to do is you want to take the information that you've done previously and you want to move your ratings for the odd number questions. These are management questions, and the even number questions, which we're showing you here in black, are the leadership questions. So to demonstrate this, we'll move the first one, which was administer tasks or activities for or with my staff or coworkers, from the first column to the second column. So this is much more of a management task. The next one, which is investigate opportunities for my organization, which is more of a leadership task, we'll ask you to move that 5 that we have here in the example over to the leadership column, and do the rest for all of the other questions that you have answered. Now, once you have that completed, Then what we would ask you to do is to total up each of the management columns and the leadership columns to give you an idea of, do you do more management or leadership in your organization? And as you can see in this example, it's about equally split, with 37 for management, 34 for leadership. The maximum score, if you took 12 times 5, would be 60 for either of the columns. We do this and provide this information for you so that you can get an idea of where you lean more towards. Now, an interesting approach is that we find that many students also take this and evaluate their own management to see how they are being managed or led. And this is an idea just to give you a pointer of where your preferences are. And you can use this in your final leadership paper or as we progress through the course. Moving to the next slide, simplicity works very well for me. So what I have found is that management and leadership can truly be summed up in 2 words. That management is much more about efficiency. This is getting all the processes right, making sure that you're squeezing that last piece of productivity out of a specific process, an individual, and so forth. And leadership is much more about effectiveness. And I say effectiveness here is that these are putting things in place so that ultimately you can see the benefit longer term. So it's doing more of the right things right. Now, one of the things that I found is that there are 3 quotes that describe managers and leaders that I use consistently in my teaching, and I hope these quotes will resonate with you. The first one is from a philosopher by the name of Johann Wolfgang von Goethe, and he said that leaders have 2 characteristics. First, they know where they're going. That's the key. They have an idea of where they're going. And the second thing is they're able to persuade others to go with them. Because if you're a leader, if you are a person and you know where you're going, but you can't persuade others to go with you, then the real question is, are you truly a leader? The second quotation is from John Kotter at Harvard. And what Kotter says is that management is about coping with complexity, but leadership is coping with change. And as you remember from the Harvard leadership model we introduced on the second slide of this lecture, that they talked all about initiating and sustaining change. And this is one of the foundations that Kotter has found, as well as what I've found in the workplace. And the third quote from Frances Hesselbein. Frances was the leader of the Girl Scouts for many, many years, has terrific books out there. I've seen her speak, a wonderful speaker. She's in her 90s currently, and she says a leader's job is not about providing energy, but it's releasing it. It's creating this environment, this work environment, so that you get the best out of your individuals as well as yourself. This we will focus on consistently throughout the course. Let's talk about leadership perspectives and approaches. This is an overview that you'll find in your textbook, but I just wanted to talk about it because there are many different characteristics and approaches to leadership that are important for you to remember as you develop your own model. First, let's talk about the 3 characteristics that when we talk about leadership, and the 3 different areas of focus. The first area, when you're talking about different leadership styles and so forth, focuses on the leader themselves. It's more leader-centric. The second characteristic or approach would be the focus on the followers. So how does what I am doing affect the people that I'm leading? And then the third approach is, how does what I am doing, or how is what I am doing affected by, or it affects the situation? And these are three very high-level groupings that when we talk about leadership that you want to remember as we progress. The second way to look at this idea of leadership is around approaches. And once again, I'd encourage you to go to your textbook in the first chapter and look at the 5 different approaches. The first is a trait approach, and this focuses on the different traits that a leadership person has, or someone in leadership or acting in a leadership position. The second is focusing on different behaviors. These are the visible behaviors that they do and how that affects their followers. The third is, how are they using their power or influence? The fourth is a situational model made famous by Ken Blanchard and Hersey, and this is what's also known as the contingency approach, just meaning that something has to happen or something is happening situationally that affects how the leader or the manager approaches it. And then finally, there's an integrative approach. The integrative approach is taking all of these elements, both here in the approaches, as well as putting all the characteristics together and integrating those into a single model. And our goal is that as you progress through the course and you develop your own model, that you will develop an integrated model that will have different variables and different emphasis on the variables from the different characteristics and approaches. And you'll come up with something that will work well for you. So what are the next steps? The next steps for this particular week. First is, please complete this week's articles and the readings from the textbook. There's some great information that we've provided for you that hopefully you will find equally as interesting. So read the articles and then the elements or the chapters from the 2 textbooks from Yuckle and Senge. The second is participate in this week's discussions. So the key word here is participate. So please feel free to participate as much as you'd like. The more the better. No questions or bad questions. Interact with myself as well as the other students, or you can even create your own questions and post those in the open forums so that you can begin discussions or get discussions begun between yourself and your colleagues and the other students in the class. And we will talk about this each week, is begin preparing your notes for your final assignment, and that is where you're going to develop your own leadership approach. Thanks for listening.